The snake by the river. In the heart of the Oyo Plains, wrapped in golden sunlight and the hum of ancient winds, there was a village called Egbra. Time didn't move the same way there, it bent and swayed like the tall raffia grasses by the river. In Egbra, stories lived in the roots of trees, and whispers traveled on the backs of birds. The people said the land still remembered the footsteps of the gods, and sometimes, when the moon was swollen and low, the old magic stirred again. This was where Oba lived, a man of smooth words and smoother lies. A trader by trade, and a charmer by craft, Oba was as striking as a lion under the morning sun. He wore imported cloth, gold bangles that clinked like coins, and walked like the world was his to take. Every market day, his voice rose above the crowd like a drumbeat, selling goods and selling dreams. Women, married or not, found reasons to linger near his stall. Oba never needed to chase, he only had to smile. But behind Oba's laughter was arrogance, the kind that grew like a weed, unnoticed until it strangled the soul. At home, Oba had a wife, Nola. Gentle as rain and strong as baobab roots, Nola was a healer. She knew the names of every leaf and how to turn sorrow into salves. People came from all over to sit by her clay pots, hoping her hands would mend what the world had broken. She asked for nothing but silence and respect, and in return, gave peace. While Oba chased shadows, Nola gathered herbs. Where he was fire, she was earth. The village adored her, and whispered, not unkindly, that she deserved better than the man who wore too many rings and came home smelling like palm wine and perfume. One night, when the moon hung like a silver drum and the frogs sang low by the riverside, Oba was walking back from a late trading day. His bag heavy with cowries, his heart light with mischief, he took a longer path, one that curved by the river. There, sitting on a rock shaped like a throne, was a woman. Her skin glowed like wet obsidian, eyes glimmering like lanterns in fog. Her hair fell in coils that seemed to move on their own. She wore no jewelry, no wrapper, just a single strip of red cloth across her waist and a gaze that felt older than the earth. Oba stopped. She didn't look at him at first, but when she did, it was like being seen naked by thunder. Evening, he said, trying on his charm like a familiar robe. Evening, trader, she replied, her voice smooth as river stones. Oba smiled. You know me. I know the footprints of every man who lies to women and steals time from their hearts. Oba chuckled, pretending not to be shaken. You must be a seer. Or a spirit. She tilted her head. Does it matter, Oba? He blinked. He hadn't told her his name. Who are you? He asked, suddenly unsure. She stood then, fluid and slow, like someone whose bones were not made of flesh. Call me Zera. Or don't call me at all. But tonight, you must choose your path. Oba swallowed. Her beauty was not ordinary. It was the kind that made men foolish. He ignored the chill in his spine and the way the trees had gone silent. I walk alone, he said, stepping closer. No wife. No ties. Zara smiled, a small, sad curve of lips. Is that the truth? It is tonight. Then so be it, she whispered. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool. Too cool. That night, while Nola was away visiting a sick child on the edge of the village, Oba brought Zara home. His steps were light, his heart thudding with pride. He had seduced many, but none like her. She moved through his hut like she had walked there before, fingers brushing over the wooden beams, the corridor walls, the calabash of palm wine. They drank. She asked no questions. He told no truths. When the night deepened and even the moon turned its face, they lay down together. Zara's breath was warm on his neck, and Oba, drunk with lust and ego, did not hear the winds shift or see the shadows lean in closer. Just before dawn, Zara leaned into his ear. Those who cheat hearts, she whispered, will one day crawl. Oba stirred, half asleep. What did you say? But when he opened his eyes, she was gone. No doors had opened. No windows stirred. The mat beside him was cold. He sat up, confused, but the wine weighed heavy on him. He rolled over and slept again. Morning came, and with it, Nola. She returned with a smile, a basket full of healing bark, and kindness in her eyes. She saw the empty calabash, the strange footprints on the floor, and said nothing. But the fire in her heart seemed to flicker longer than usual. Oba said nothing either. But the river remembered. And the wind carried the curse like pollen. Scales of shame. Oba woke with a jolt. The morning sun filtered weakly through the raffia roof, but the warmth didn't soothe him. Instead, his skin felt as if it were burning from the inside out. He rubbed his arms, his neck, raw and tingling, as if ants had made a home beneath his skin. His dreams had been strange. He saw a river winding through a forest he didn't recognize, filled with snakes that whispered in human tongues. One of them had his voice. He sat up and looked at his legs. For a moment, all seemed normal. But when he stood to stretch, his wrapper slipped, and he froze. Near his ankle, under the hair and sun-darkened skin, were patches of scale, small, glistening like fish skin, arranged in neat, unnatural rows. Oba blinked. Rubbed them. Hard. But the texture didn't change. His skin was no longer just skin. It was something else. He laughed nervously. Maybe it's a rash, he muttered. Too much palm wine. Or river water. Maybe just stress. He covered his leg, got dressed quickly, and stepped outside, blinking at the blinding brightness of Egbra's midday sun. The village was alive. Children running, elders talking beneath the iroko tree, the market pulsing with color and noise. He smiled, waved. Acted like everything was normal. But inside him, panic brewed like sour oji. When Nola returned that evening, humming softly and carrying a pouch of crushed lemongrass, Oba had already scrubbed his legs until they bled. The scales didn't fade. If anything, they shimmered brighter under the blood. He sat by the hearth, trying not to look guilty. Nola paused at the doorway. Something was wrong. The house felt heavier. The air was thicker. Even the herbs that usually filled the room with fragrance now lay limp and grey in their clay bowls. The ochre she kept for protection had cracked into pieces. She didn't speak at first. Just lit a small flame, sprinkled incense, and began to chant softly, a cleansing she always did after returning from homes that knew too much sorrow. Oba's hands twitched. He tried to act casual, sipping water, wiping sweat that didn't belong to the heat. But Nola saw everything, the way his back curved differently now, the way his tongue flicked against his teeth too often, the way his eyes blinked slower, as if they were adjusting to light he hadn't known before. "Did someone visit?" she asked quietly. "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. But that night, the whispers began. At first, they came as echoes of wind, barely noticeable, like trees murmuring in sleep. Then they grew louder. More insistent. They spoke in riddles. In songs. They said his name. Oba, trader of lies, skin of shame. He turned in bed, sweating, clutching his chest, but Nola slept peacefully beside him. Or at least pretended to. In his dreams, he was no longer a man. He was crawling through leaves, tasting the earth with his tongue, his body long and cold. Above him, trees whispered, and in the sky, a woman stood, her arms wide, her laughter sharp as thunder. Zera. She danced through his dreams, barefoot and grinning. Her eyes glowed with green fire. "I told you," she whispered. "Those who cheat hearts will one day crawl." He screamed. Woke. Shaking. Skin damp. Eyes wild. By the third night, he couldn't bear it anymore. His hands had grown strange, the fingers stiff, the nails thickening. When he looked in the mirror, his pupils were no longer round. They were slits. Narrow. Hungry. He avoided Nola's gaze. Spoke less. Ate less. Walked with a limp. The villagers noticed. Oba looks pale, they whispered. Not himself. But no one dared say it to Nola. Out of respect. Out of fear. She finally confronted him after she found a trail of shed skin near the cooking fire. Not ash. Not cloth. Skin, dry, translucent, and patterned like a snake's. Oba, she said, her voice barely more than a breath, what have you done? He said nothing. She stepped closer. Her eyes shimmered with sadness, not anger. What did you bring into this house? Still, silence. Tell me the truth, she pleaded. Before it consumes you. And he did. In gasps and half-lies, he confessed. About the woman by the river. About her beauty. About the night he brought her home. About the whisper she left behind. Nola didn't move. When he finished, she knelt beside the hearth, picked up a small gourd, and poured a thick black oil into her palm. She told you her name? Nola asked, her voice calm now. Too calm. Zara, he said. And then he saw it, the way her hands trembled. I know who she is, Nola whispered. She sat down, her eyes distant, her voice turning to ash. My grandmother once told me the story. A spirit, born from betrayal. A guardian of the forest of shadows, cursed to walk the world seeking men who wound hearts with lies. They say she once loved the man who promised her eternity, then sold her to slavers in exchange for cowries and spices. She died in chains, and rose in vengeance. Oba's breath caught. She traps unfaithful men, Nola continued. She doesn't just hunt them. She transforms them. Strips away their skin and leaves what they truly are. Oba looked at his hands, veins turning dark, skin flaking. What do I do? He whispered. Nola stared at him. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, slowly, I don't know if there is a way back. But if there is, it won't be through lies. The wind howled outside, like a warning. Or a promise. And in the corner of the room, unseen by both, a single green snake coiled quietly behind the firewood. The curse deepens. By the time the next moon waxed full, Oba could no longer walk like a man. His legs, once proud and swift, had stiffened into something foreign. Each step brought agony, until, one morning, he stopped trying. He lay on the ground, body stretched unnaturally long, dragging himself through his home like a creature meant for the forest floor. He no longer slept in bed. The mat scratched his skin now darkening and glistening, lined with shimmering scales from foot to thigh. His hands were curling in, fingers fusing slightly, and his tongue had begun to flicker, not in speech, but in scent, tasting the air like a serpent. Nola watched, her heart splintering. She had tried everything. She'd called the winds with sacred chants. Burned 7 herbs under the full moon. Bathed him in oils made from ogbono root and lion's paw leaf. She drew protective sigils on the walls, placed cowrie shells under his pillow, even whispered to the ancestors beneath the talking tree. But Zara's power was deep, coiled like an ancient vine in Oba's soul. Nothing Nola did could touch it. Meanwhile, Egbra began to whisper. Have you seen Oba lately? Not in days. They say something he sees in his hut at night. They say his eyes are like a lizard now. The market women avoided Nola's stall. Children stopped coming for herbal candy. Even the animals seemed uneasy around her home. Chickens refused to peck near the compound, goats bleated and turned away. The once beloved healer was now the wife of a man touched by spirits. One night, while Oba lay half asleep on the floor, his body twisted, his breath rasping, the hissing began again. Loud. Unnatural. It came not from his mouth. It came from every corner of the house. From the shadows. From the walls. From the very air. Nola clutched her charm beads, chanting softly. But it wasn't enough. She knew she needed more than roots and prayers. She needed truth. She needed someone who knew the story behind the story. So, the next morning, she journeyed far beyond the village, across the river, through the thicket, and up a hill where the trees bent low to whisper. At the very top, in a hut made of clay and bone, lived Grandmother Oro, the oldest woman in 3 regions. Her eyes were clouded, but her ears heard lies before they were spoken. Oro sat on a mat of lion's skin, stirring something thick and black in a clay pot when Nola arrived. Without turning, she said, "You've brought the stench of snake and sorrow, child." Nola dropped to her knees. "Please, grandmother. My husband is..." Turning, Oro interrupted. "Yes. I smelled it 3 nights ago." Nola's voice cracked. "Is there anything that can stop it?" Oro sighed. "There is a story. Listen." She dipped her fingers into the black mixture and began painting symbols on the wall, images of a woman, a man, and a serpent. Long ago, before Egbura had a name, there was a woman called Zera. She was mortal, beautiful, gentle, and she loved the man who made her believe the stars would kneel for her. He was powerful, a warrior, a chieftain. But like all men who wear too many feathers, he had secrets. One day, he betrayed her. Sold her to the Northman for beads and iron. Left her in chains. Nola's eyes filled with tears. The gods wept for her, Oro continued. But weeping does not undo wounds. So they did the next best thing, they gave her form. A form that would never be owned again. They turned her into a spirit of vengeance. A snake. Beautiful. Deadly. Eternal. Every generation, she returns. Searching for men who repeat the past. Liars. Cheats. Destroyers of devotion. And if she finds one, she binds him in her curse. Slowly. Painfully. Until he becomes what he is inside. Nola whispered, "How long does he have?" 3 days. Then the transformation becomes permanent. His mind, his voice, his soul, all gone. Only instinct will remain. Nola's voice trembled. "Is there no cure?" "There is one way," Oru said, finally looking at her. "But it is not simple. Nor fair." Nola braced herself. He must be saved by a sacrifice born of love. Not guilt. Not pity. Love. Nola stared, stunned. "A sacrifice?" she asked. "What kind?" "The kind that hurts. The kind only the heart can measure." Oru's voice softened, "And it must be freely given. You cannot be tricked into it. You must choose." Silence filled the hut. Nola closed her eyes. Her mind screamed, "He lied to you. Betrayed your bed. Shamed your name." But her heart whispered, "He is still the man you once loved." Beneath the scales. Beneath the sin. She returned to Egbura in silence. Obale curled on the floor when she arrived, his breathing ragged. His face barely human now, his nose flattened, his skin darkened, his eyes reptilian. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a hiss. Nola knelt beside him, placed her hand on what used to be his chest. 3 days, she whispered. "And I don't know if I'm strong enough to forgive." Oba's eyes blinked slowly. A tear, or perhaps just water, rolled down his scaly cheek. That night, she stayed by his side. And in the distance, by the river, Zara stood watching, her silhouette bathed in moonlight, her smile unreadable. Love in the fangs. Oba could no longer speak. His mouth had grown too long, too sharp. His tongue flickered without warning, seeking heat, scent, truth in the air. His limbs had nearly vanished, fused into a body built to coil and slither. Only a patch of his human skin remained near his heart, pulsing weakly beneath layers of scale. But inside, he was still Oba. His mind, though clouded, panicked, primal, remained aware. He saw Nola kneel beside him, felt her fingers gently touch his twisted form. He could not cry, but his soul wept. For her. For what he had done. He remembered Zera's words, whispered like wind through bone. Those who cheat hearts will one day crawl. He had crawled. Now, on the third night, he could barely move. Every bone ached. Every breath burned. He had expected anger, rejection, even fear. But Nola, sweet, strong Nola, remained. I don't know if I can forgive you, she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from his face, but I still care. That was all he needed to hear. She wrapped him in a cloth, careful not to cause pain, and began her journey through the shadowed paths of Egbra forest, where even the trees watched in silence. Their destination, the Temple of Tears, hidden deep beyond the root of time, where gods once walked and the old magic still breathed. It took hours. Birds fell silent as she passed. Leaves cowed in mourning. But Nola pressed on, holding the bundle close, her resolve like iron wrapped in velvet. The temple stood at the end of a long gorge, carved into stone, draped in vines, its archway shaped like a weeping face. Water streamed endlessly from the eyes, feeding the river below. Inside, the air was thick with incense and memory. Two paths lay before her. To the left, a golden door glowing with light. To the right, a darkened arch surrounded by bones. She stepped forward. A voice, ancient and genderless, rose from the air. One path frees him. One path finishes him. Both require sacrifice. Nola closed her eyes. But before she could move, the shadows twisted. Zera appeared. Her beauty was sharper now, more spirit than woman. Her hair moved like smoke. Her eyes were twin flames. And yet, behind the power was pain, layered like rings inside a tree. You came, Zera said softly. I thought you might. I had to, Nola replied, lifting Oba gently. I still see the man beneath this. Zera tilted her head. Even after he betrayed you? Yes. You would give your life, for him. Nola's breath hitched. If I must. Zera stepped closer, her voice laced with centuries of sorrow. I once loved a man too. He told me my eyes held the stars. That my voice was a song the gods envied. And then, he gave me away. Traded my love for weapons and gold. Her fingers curled. No one came to save me. No one fought for me. So I became the punishment. I know, Nola whispered. And I am sorry. You didn't deserve that. Zera blinked, taken aback. Nola continued, but punishing me won't heal you. And punishing him won't make the betrayal vanish. You sound like the gods, Zera said bitterly. Maybe they are finally listening. The air shifted. Nola turned to the temple center, where an ancient basin lay carved into the stone. Water flowed through it like liquid moonlight. The god's altar. She placed Oba gently into the basin. I won't give my life, she said aloud, her voice steady. But I will give my love. She reached into her pouch and took out a necklace, a simple thread with 2 carved stones. One for her. One for Oba. They'd made it years ago, laughing under a mango tree. She placed it into the basin. I offer this, she said, as proof of the love I once had, and the love I choose again. Not because he deserves it, but because I still carry it. The temple shuddered. The walls glowed. The face carved into the stone cried heavier. The basin overflowed. Zara stepped back, her eyes wide with something like awe or fear. Light surged through Oba's body. He screamed, or tried to, as the scales cracked, fell away like old bark. His limbs twisted, reshaped. His chest rose. His tongue thickened. His eyes lost their slits. His breath returned. Oba, naked, trembling, weeping, lay in the basin, fully human. But the basin didn't stop glowing. Nola gasped, stepping forward, and collapsed. Her knees buckled. Blood dripped from her nose. The cost had come. Not her life, but a piece of her spirit. The gods had accepted her love and taken something in return. Oba crawled to her, tears streaming down his newly formed face. Nola, he whispered, voice hoarse. Nola, please, stay with me, please. She opened her eyes. Still, here. Zara stood at the temple's edge, eyes full of unspoken grief. She said nothing, but slowly, like mist retreating from sun, she faded into the air, her face softened by something close to peace. Oba cradled Nola under the rising light of dawn. He was a man again. But he would never be the same. And neither would she. The weight of redemption. Oba awoke with the taste of soil and tears in his mouth. The air was lighter now, not heavy with curses or guilt, but it still carried weight, the weight of all that had happened, and the price paid for his return. He was human. But not whole. His body bore a long, winding scar from his ribs down to his ankle, dark, scaly, and cold to the touch. It shimmered faintly under sunlight, never fading. A permanent reminder of the serpent he had become, and the man he had once been. Beside him, Nola rested. Her eyes, once sharp as eagle's wings, stared blankly into the rising sun. The ritual hadn't claimed her life, but it had taken her sight. Her hands moved slowly through the grass, learning a new word by touch. Is it morning? She asked softly. Oba swallowed the lump in his throat and took her hand. It is. The sky is red. The kind you used to call fireblood. She smiled. Then it's a good day. They made the journey back to Egbera village together. Oba, now frail, leaned on a carved staff. Nola, in silence, leaned on him. The villagers stared. Mothers pulled children behind their wrappers. Elders whispered. Farmers paused in their planting, unsure if they were seeing a ghost or a warning. The stories had spread faster than wildfire, about the man who turned to a snake, about the wife who walked into the temple of tears and came back blind. Oba said nothing. He did not defend himself, did not explain. Shame, when won rightly, does not demand sympathy. He bore it with quiet grace. He built a shrine on the edge of the forest, where the trees whispered Zara's name. There, he placed carved stones, one for every story lost to betrayal, one for every woman whose pain had been ignored. He did not build it for forgiveness. He built it for truth. At its base, he carved words that would outlive him. Here rest the names the world forgot. May we never repeat their silence. The shrine became a place of peace, of prayer, of remembrance. Young girls brought flowers. Old women lit candles. Even the priests began to speak Zara's name with reverence, not fear. Oba, once the proudest trader in Egbera, now became its humblest teacher. He gathered boys beneath the village tree and told them stories, not of gold and power, but of honor, love, and choice. He spoke of consequences. Of the weight of a broken heart. Of the power women held that too many men feared, not because it was dangerous, but because it was just. Respect, he said, is not given because someone is fragile. It is given because they are powerful. Nola, blind but ever wise, sat nearby each time, weaving herbs and listening. She never interrupted. She didn't have to. Her silence said enough. Over time, the village changed. Slower than Oba hoped, but it changed. Men listened more. Apologies came easier. Boys cried without shame, and girls spoke without fear. And the shrine, simple, made of stone and story, stood tall like a guardian of memory. One evening, as twilight bled into the earth, Nola sat outside their home, head tilted toward the wind. "There's a calm in the forest tonight," she whispered. Oba stepped out, watching the trees sway in rhythm. "Do you feel her?" Nola asked. He nodded, even though she could not see it. "Yes." In the heart of the Egbra forest, beneath a banyan tree older than the oldest elder, a new snake was born. Small. Silver. Eyes calm. It slithered gently across the moss, unbothered, untouched by rage. Zera's spirit, at long last, had moved on. She had watched long enough to see one man change. To see one love survive the storm. To see that her pain had not been in vain. And as the stars blinked awake, she disappeared into the leaves, not as a curse, not as a ghost, but as peace. The end.